Hello and welcome, beautiful, to today's Thursday Talk. I'm Susanna Kay, and I'm so glad to have you here with me. So today we are wrapping up our loops series. So the mental load deep dive, where we're talking about open loops and what that has to do with our stress levels, our mental load, and our productivity. So today is part 6 of the series. This is the last part of the series. Let me know in the chat if you've been enjoying the series and what you've thought about it. Tell me also, what is one loop that you have closed or one area that feels lighter since we started this series? So like past 5 episodes, you've had a little while to work with it. So tell me what's one loop you've closed or one area that feels lighter since we started. So we'll start off today by recapping the series, just super quick. I'm not going to go in depth into each section, but just what we've talked about so you know where to go back to if there's something you want to do your watch. We'll talk about the maintenance plan, how to maintain your loops and keep it all under control. The emotional maintenance tools. This is sort of a quick reminder of a little bit of what we talked about last week, just the important stuff, so that way we honor our mental state and we're kind to ourselves. We'll talk about rest and recovery, what to do when you fall behind, and preventing future loops. We'll talk about pausing that habit in order to be able to move forward. So that is what we will be talking about today. But before we dive in, I want to hop over to the comments. I asked you what's one loop you've closed or one area that feels lighter since we started. And of course, I always love to hear who's here and where you're from. So really quickly, hello to Rosella. Glad to have you here. Beautiful. And Jana is here. Welcome. Lori, she says, good morning from Cleveland. She didn't get the email reminder today, but she found the link in the online library. Wonderful. I'm glad you found the link. And so did Jana. Fantastic. I'm glad that you guys are so smart. You made it through. Nancy says hi from Colorado. Hello, Nancy. Wonderful. Yeah, Rosella said she didn't get the email either, but she says, I'm glad I'm getting it today. Yay. Lori says, I've really enjoyed this series. I went through all my DVDs and VHS tapes and got rid of what to keep or let go of. Sold all the ones to get rid of last week and yesterday. Yay! Woo, woo, woo. That's awesome. That's a huge one. I love that. Good morning, Brana. Nice to have you here. All right. Well, as you hop on, continue telling me what is one loop that you've closed or one area that feels lighter since we started. Lori's got hers. I'd love to hear yours as well. And let's dive in. So let's do a quick recap. This is the 6th part of the series. This is the final part. So far we talked about in part 1, we talked about what is mental load and what are open loops. How do those affect us? Part 2, we talked about managing attention residue. So what attention residue is and how can you manage that attention residue? That all ties into loops. Loops create that attention residue too. In part 3, we talked about tiny wins and practicing them. So those are your little small steps, but thinking about them as wins, and loop closers, closing loops and ways to close loops, additional ways. In part 4, we talked about building trust with our systems and ways that we can build trust and how important it is to build that trust for our brains to truly let go. And then last week in part 5, we talked about handling big emotional projects. So either the big projects or the emotional project. Usually the emotional ones and the big ones go together. So they're usually big and emotional. So today we're going to talk about how to stay clear. We already have the tools. We know how to close the loops. We know how to build the trust. We know what loops are and attention residue. We know how to handle those big emotional projects. How do we stay clear without falling back into the old habits so that we can keep growing in this way? So we'll start off with the maintenance plan. So the maintenance plan is, these are some ways. This is kind of a structure. So you might want to grab a pen and write this down real quick. If you're a Pathfinder, then you'll have this for a bit longer, this replay for a bit longer in your online library. But these are the steps to kind of structure how to make sure that you're closing your loops and keeping on top of the loops and building that trust. So, number 1, So every day, if possible, I know that there will be some days where you don't have the energy for it, but aim for every day, right? 5 minutes. Do the capture step. So capturing means to end each day by capturing all of those stray loops. So the notes, the thoughts, the papers, all of that stuff that's still kind of lingering and open, and drop it into your action file, right? Because the action file, remember, our action file right here, it is your brain's safe holding place. So if you look around and make sure that any open to-do papers or even to file papers are in your action file, and then anything else that's an open loop, just jot it down as a note to yourself and toss it in your to-do folder in your action file. And then that way, that will help reset that mental load overnight. Because if you don't do that before you go to bed, then your brain's going to hold on to all those loops throughout the night and have them right there for you fresh in the morning. But by closing those loops, by giving them a home in a trusted system, the action file, that means that your brain can actually let go and refresh and trust that they will be there in the morning without having to remember them. So that's every day. End each day by capturing stray loops and then put them in your action file so they're nice and safe so your brain can actually reset. And then once a week, maybe 45 minutes, more or less, whatever works in your schedule, review and refresh. This is your review and refresh once a week step. So empty or process any folder in your action file that's about 75% full, right? So if your to enter or your to read is about 75% full, just try to review it, refresh it, make sure that you see what's in there and go through the parts that you can. File things, shred things, move them to where the correct next step is, whatever you need to do with them. And then this will help you avoid your loop explosions because those folders will never burst, right? In the to read and the to enter folder, usually there are several things that we can just knock out super fast. If you're grabbing them and bringing them with you to doctor's appointments or sitting in the car line to pick up your kids throughout the week, then this helps this as well. But we don't want those folders to get overflowing to the point where your loops basically burst, and then it becomes a situation that you have to handle right then versus when you have time. So once a week, about 45 minutes, review and refresh, and then finally celebrate and do it visibly. Because by celebrating yourself, this is setting the tone about closing loops and being proactive, being more fun. Your brain will want to do this more because you've set up that system of celebration. Third, once a month, do one digital reset. You don't have to do every single one every month. Just once a month, pick one. You can do your email inbox, your downloads folder, your digital photos, your notes app, whatever it is, but apply that same decide, do, defer, delete method, but do it with your digital files, right? So that way they all kind of stay on top of it too. So that also avoids loop explosions and it keeps those digital loops from weighing on your brain. So optionally, if you're doing the monthly, right, that monthly one digital reset, you can set a timer. So that way your brain does not feel like this is a big thing. You don't have to get through it all. Get through maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour, all right? And then once a quarter, so once every about 3 months, review your big projects. Remember, our big and emotional projects, these are the ones that you can't just sit down and close that loop completely right away. So we set up our mini loops so that we can make progress without having to kind of chew on it in our brain in between. But it's really important to go back and review those projects every once in a while to see what progress you've made, to make sure that you're still on track, and for your brain to then relax again saying, yep, I still feel like that's under control. Because sometimes when we're just doing the small steps, we can lose sight of the big picture and then our brain can start to panic a little, right? So we don't want our brain to panic. So open your action file or action box like we talked about last time if you have big projects. And these are the decisions to make, right? Decide what's complete, right? What has been completed? What is paused? Are you waiting on something? And what needs scheduling? So what can you schedule out? Because you're kind of in that point where You can't do it right this moment, but you can actually schedule it, right? And that scheduling includes breaking it down into small steps. So you can use that triage method that we talked about in part number 5 last week. So use that triage method. Just a reminder, the triage method, you're going to decide what's immediate or important. So for medical was one of our examples. That would be like calls, prescription medicines, going to your appointments. Those are the immediate and important. So those are the ones that hit your to-do list. Then there are the items that can be scheduled, such as billing, filling out forms, scheduling checkups. Those are the ones that you can schedule for later. You don't have to do them right this moment, but by scheduling them, that closes the loop. And then there's the archive, where you're just finishing up all those last administrative things, scanning things, filing things, shredding things, doing those last little bits that can finally completely close the loop. So your archive and your scheduled, you can handle those really quickly and close the loop by either putting them in the right place for the next step or scheduling them. And then the immediate and important, that's the to-do list items. So that's the stuff that you'll actually work on once you close those other loops so your brain stops thinking about it, right? So once a quarter, if you do this with your big projects, that calms your brain again, right? So your brain can go, yep, we're still on track. I'm good. And that's what we want. We want our brain to feel confident. And then you can keep going with the projects in your small steps. So really quickly, I want to head, before we go to the emotional maintenance tool review, I want to head over to the chat because I asked you about your loop closing and how that was going. So let's see. We have Brenda Jean is here. Hello, Brenda Jean. Nancy says, I closed the clothing consignment loop forever. Yay! Woo, woo, woo. That's wonderful. So she has a very big, important closed loop, which is so nice, right? That's an emotional one as well. Tony says, here from the tri-state area, love the series. Oh, yay. I'm so glad. Glad to have you here, Tony. And I believe it's Coral, finally able to listen today. Coral from Michigan. Welcome, Coral. Glad to have you. Melanie is here from Southern California. She says, I think I missed last week, so I might have to check that replay. That is all good. That's what the replays are for. And then Tony says, my to-file folder in my action file helped me realize that I need to organize my long-term files. Do you have any videos on this? Also, to pay came in quite handy recently. And do you have any celebration ideas? Fantastic. And actually, for your long-term files, as well as your full paper system, the best resource I have for this is my Paper Path course. You can go to SuzannaKay.com. So SuzannaKay.com. Go to the store and you can find the Paper Path course. This takes you step by step through setting up your entire paper system, your short-term files, your long-term files, and it breaks it down into little closed loops for you so you don't have to worry about a big project and how to chunk that down into the small steps. It's already chunked down for you. So check that out because that should help you out. Great, great question. I love that, Tony. And then if you have any questions, you can always email me at hello@SuzannaK.com. All right. Well, keep telling me what you think of the series and what loops you've closed since we started the series, and or what areas feel lighter and better. What's going better because of the things that you've learned. All right. Let's go to also, if you love the Thursday Talks, consider supporting me so I can keep these free and keep doing them for you. Just go to SuzannaK.live/support and you can pick whatever amount works for you. $5, $50, whatever you prefer. And yeah, just keep these going. So we talked about our recap. We talked about our maintenance, right? How to maintain all of these loops. That way we maintain that trust in our system, because if we don't follow through, then our brain stops trusting. So there are some very easy ways to follow through. Let's talk about the emotional maintenance tools. Now, we talked more in depth about this last week, but I wanted to just do a quick review of them because this is another really important part of your brain trusting you. Your brain has to feel safe. Like you're not going to push it into an area where you push it so far that it is like beyond uncomfortable and not feeling safe or nurtured anymore, right? So when we are working on our papers, especially because our papers can be very emotional, remember to use the comfort cap, right? So that is whenever you're working on heavy or emotional work, do it for maybe 20 minutes maximum at a time. After the 20 minutes, and set a timer. This is just like we do in the group hikes, right? Set a timer. After the 20 minutes, if it's heavy or emotional, then take a break, stand up, walk away, go for a walk, separate yourself from that area and get some movement. Or if it's really emotional and heavy, just stop for the day. Stopping early tells your brain that you will keep it safe, and then it can trust that nothing will be all that bad. So then it thinks, I can do the hard and heavy things because it's not going to take me to a place that I don't need to be. And then do mental temperature checks is what I call them, where every once in a while you're working on one of those emotional projects or big projects, pause and ask yourself, am I overwhelmed? Am I tense? Am I zoning out and just not making the most appropriate decisions anymore because my brain's tired? How am I doing mentally? So if, yes, you're overwhelmed or you're starting to feel really tense or getting depressed or zoning out, then pause, take a break, or completely switch tasks, right? And this way, your emotional work will be sustainable because you aren't going to get to that place where your brain remembers the scars of doing it. And then finally, make sure that you have support and community around you for those emotional and heavy tasks. So you can do group hikes, you can do co-working sessions. Those are kind of loop safe zones. So remember, when you are going through all of this emotional stuff, you're not deleting love. You're not deleting your memories. You're not deleting things. You are only deleting the clutter. The rest will still be with you. But finding that support and that community, such as the group hikes, that is extremely important, especially for those big projects and emotionally heavy items. All right, well, I want to talk about the reset and recovery because we are human, right? We will fall behind. It's how it works. Life happens, chaos happens in our lives. So we'll talk about what to do to get back on track when that happens. Over in the chat, I wanted to say really quickly, Tony says, I have closed the loop on purchasing and having installed my parents' headstone. Oh, wonderful. She says, done all within 3 weeks. This system was a big help. The paper Thursdays include your live plus my weekly paper management session. Oh, I love it. That is wonderful. I'm sorry for your loss, but yeah, getting those things settled, really, that's a huge, huge emotional loop. So good job, Tony. Big hugs. Big hugs. I love it. All right, so there are times when things fall behind, right? Sometimes emotional things happen in our lives. Sometimes our brain just decides to take a break with or without our permission. So when you fall behind, this is a quick reset that you can do, right? So it's just 3 steps, a 3-step quick reset. Step number 1, forgive yourself quickly. First thing you do without even thinking about it, forgive yourself. I fell behind and that is okay. Step number 2, restart small. So pick a small step, right? Open your action file and choose just one folder. Maybe if you're feeling overwhelmed, maybe you just go through some of the to read and you read through it. Or to enter and you enter a few things. Maybe you just browse through your to-do folder. Something tiny just to get started. And then number 3 is close one loop, any loop. It does not have to be the most important loop, but having that visible completion, that is what will get you back on track and build that momentum up, right? Because we're not starting over because you've been doing the work. You're at a different place than when you started. So each time you might fall off the wagon, you're not going all the way back to the start, right? You're just starting again where you fell off, which is absolutely normal and fine. We don't become an expert gymnast without falling off the balance beam sometimes. Same thing with our papers. So you don't start over, you start again. And when it's time to start again, remember, the first thing before you even think about it is forgive yourself. And you can even say it out loud. I fell behind and that's okay. Second, find a small step. Open your action file, pick a folder, and do a small step, whether it's browsing your to-dos or reading through a few to-reads. And then number 3, close one loop. Any loop, whether it is reading through an article in the to-read folder or doing one of the items in your to-do folder, pick a loop. And then that visible completion, that's what can help get you back on track so you can start again. So that was our reset and recovery for when you fall behind. Now, aside from managing and closing these loops, it's really important to start changing our mindset about starting loops. If we can have fewer open loops that we create, then there's fewer loops to have to close and manage, because we can be our own worst enemies this way. I know I can. I bet you probably can too. But preventing future loops. We will never get to a point, and our goal is not to get to a point where we have no loops. That's not living, right? That would be hibernating and not experiencing life or doing anything. Our goal, instead of having no loops, our goal is to have a feeling of calm and control over the loops we have, and to have curated our loops as much as possible so they are the loops that we truly want in our life, right? Knitting that baby blanket for your new grandchild. That's an amazingly wonderful open loop. Those are good loops, right? Paying your bills on time. Each bill is an open loop, and we want to close it with a feeling of confidence and clarity and the feeling that we have it under control. So, paying the bills on time, that's a great example of managing our loops in a way that we feel calm, that we feel in control, and we've got it all together. So that's our goal, not zero loops. We want to choose our loops, and we want to feel in control of the loops that we have so we don't build up all of that anxiety from that mental load of everything pressuring us. So let's look at our future loops and use the pause habit in order to really make sure that we're creating loops that we truly want and not just creating loops because it sparked our fancy in the moment. So, pause. The habit of pausing before you promise or take action on something will eliminate probably like 50% or more of the unnecessary open loops and promises that we make that become heavy for us. So before saying yes to anything, before saying yes to like bringing home something from the store or from the buy nothing group or the thrift store, or somebody's saying, do you want this? Before saying yes, pause and ask yourself, do I have a home for this? And I like to actually try to picture where in my house this is going to go. Or if it's already a full area, what in my house is going to go out of my house in order to fit this new thing, right? The one in, one out type of thing. So pause before saying yes to bringing something into your home. Think, do I have a home for this? This even works for papers. Before you hit print on that confirmation, think, where am I going to put this? And visualize the process. Sometimes we might think, you know what, I'll just keep it digitally. Before starting something new and thinking, hey, I can do that. I would love to start creating an inventory of my entire pantry and keeping it up. Think, what is the next step? What is the next step before I start something, right? When you think about what the next step is, that takes it from the finish thought process, because picturing having this spreadsheet of all of your pantry inventory is exciting, but what is the next step? Brings it into reality of, okay, well, when we start thinking of the next step, okay, well, these are some of the steps. What'll be the next step? And it starts to become real. What is some of the work that is going to be required to do this? And then if it is truly an alignment, you might think, okay, I'm still good with it. If it's not an alignment, you might think, never mind. There's kind of a lot of steps. I don't really want to commit to doing all those things in order to have that beautiful picture I had in my mind. So pause before you start a new project or idea and think, what's the next step to bring it back into reality? If you do decide to do it, then you can write down what that next step is and toss it in your action file. So that way it is already a closed next step loop for you. So you don't have to worry about that open loop and it rattling around in your brain. Before buying something, I guess this kind of goes with yes, but before saying yes, but before buying something, where will it live? Where is it going to live in your home? And then before you go to bed, if your brain is really like chewing on everything, right? And it just won't relax, or if you've got a lot of open loops around, think about what can wait until tomorrow. And it's nice because most of the things can wait until tomorrow. So that can calm your nervous system. What can wait until tomorrow? Yeah, that can wait until tomorrow. And that can wait until tomorrow. And if you're doing your daily maintenance routine, you can even jot down, okay, got to do this, put it in your action file to do folder, take the paper that is a to do, put it in your action files to do folder. So that way you're closing the loops. But acknowledging what can wait until tomorrow calms your brain because it makes it not feel so urgent, right? So pause before saying yes to bringing something in or before buying something. Do I have a home for this? Where is it going to live? Before starting something new, think, what is the next step? Pause and truly think of the next step. And that will help clarify, instead of the big pretty picture of the finished project, what are the actual steps? Before going to bed, think, okay, what can wait until tomorrow? This can also work for when it's time to stop working for the day. What can wait until tomorrow? Settle that brain, right? And then you can just celebrate and integrate. We'll talk about that in just a second. That's the fun part, right? I wanted to hop over to the chat. Joanna says, hi from Missouri. Hi, Joanna. Nancy says, closing loops has become another regular part of everything we do now. Along with what would it look like if it was easy, you have streamlined our decision process. Thank you so much. Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. That is fantastic. Tony says, I imagine a professional hula hooper perfectly managing several hula hoops. That's how we will manage our loops. I like that. That's really fun. And you can only hold so many. So you've really chosen your loops wisely. That's cute. I like it. Hello, Madonna. Sorry. Madonna says, before buying, I now already think, how am I going to discard this when it no longer fits this season of life? I began taking on this way of thinking once I realized our local recycling center is not really recycling. Yes. Thinking about if you're environmentally conscious or really like to manage resources well, right? Then thinking about what happens when you're done with it will really reduce a whole lot of things that you might bring into your home, right? Those things that are just for a short season might not be that interesting if you think about the fact that it'll probably end up in a landfill, right? So I love that. That's a really good one. Thank you for sharing. Love that, Madonna. All right. Well, I think it was Tony who asked this earlier. Let me check. Yep, it was Tony who asked about celebration ideas. Well, some of the celebrations that we can do, making them visible, makes it more effective, right? Visible to you, visible outside of you as well. So here are a couple of ideas for just little mini celebrations that you can do as you close loops. So you can create a visual reminder of your wins. So I have these boards over here that I've talked about a couple times in the past. I don't talk about them often, but they're basically picture frames that I've put pretty paper in. One of them is my ta-da list, which instead of a to-do list, it's ta-da, it's done. So sometimes I will write down on that list some of the things that I did, some of those loops that I closed. That gives me a visual of, look at all the things I've done. This is especially helpful on the days where it feels like you're, walking uphill through mud, you're not getting anything done. A lot of times you're just not getting things done that are on your to-do list, but you've gotten a lot of things done that came up at the last minute, right? You closed a lot of loops. They just might not have been the loops that you wanted. So having a loop tracker board or a to-do list, whether it's a board on your wall like I have, or if it's just simply like a to-do list, but it's a celebration list, that can be really helpful when you want to see your progress and in order to tell your brain, good job, right? You can also have a loop celebration jar. There have been times where I've written down, like, did this, and just thrown that little piece of paper in the jar, and you get to see that jar fill up and fill up. That is really helpful too. It's great also for projects. If you have a specific project that you're working on, and it's one of those projects, especially paper projects, that you can't see the visual progress as easily, having something like a jar or one of those thermometers you can fill in or a to-do list is really helpful to see that, yes, you're making progress. These are all the loops you closed. It might not visually look like it because it's either paper or digital, so you can't see the progress, but giving yourself that visual is helpful. So creating a visible reminder of your wins. Tracker board, to-do list, celebration jar, somehow making it visible. Feel free to also share it in a group so that other people can also say, great job. So the Home Organizing Challenges free Facebook group on Facebook, that's my group, and feel free. Post some of your closed loop wins on there, and then we can all just tell you that you're amazing, because you are, and we all need to hear that. And then reframing your story, right? This helps you integrate some of these closing loops. I do this constantly because I get into phases where I create more loops than I close. So sometimes I have to get right back into my loop closing system and mindset. So reframe your system or your story by telling yourself new thoughts, such as, I am a loop closer, or like, I walk around the house thinking, I close loops, I close loops. And if anybody heard inside of my head or heard me talking out loud to myself sometimes when nobody's around, they would think I was a crazy person, but it works. You can also tell yourself, what is the benefit of these systems, especially as you're trying to build some of these systems for the first time, like your maintenance system of doing once a day, once a week. What is the reason? What is the benefit of this system? And keep telling yourself that. Tell yourself that as it's time to do it. Each evening before bed, my systems protect my peace. Or, by doing my daily wrap up, I can sleep better. My brain can rest too. Whatever your mantra is, pick one that tells you what's the benefit of this new thing that you're trying to set up or get used to doing. And then whenever you fall off the rails and you need to start again, telling yourself that progress is better than perfect can help, right? Because sometimes we might get frustrated because we missed a day or we did not do it perfectly like we think that we quote unquote should. But progress is better than perfect. If we do it perfectly, that's great. But if we're waiting for perfect or beating ourselves up because it's not perfect, we're not making progress. So we're not moving forward at all. If we're waiting for perfect, we're standing still and nothing is getting done. So don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for the perfect tools. Don't wait for the perfect energy. Just make whatever imperfect progress you can. And even if it's terribly imperfect, it's better than it was before you started. So reframing your story. I'm a loop closer. I close loops. My systems protect my peace. Or by doing my daily wrap up, my brain can rest and sleep. Progress is better than perfect, because if I'm waiting for perfect, then I'm standing still. Those are some great ways to change the way that your brain is thinking about these things, and that will remove a whole lot of blocks and help you to move forward as well. So celebrate, create a visual reminder, and reframe your story say different things to yourself. Catch yourself if you're saying things that aren't nice to yourself as well. And change what you just said. Say, I hear you, brain. You're upset because I did not do that perfectly. But at least I moved forward instead of standing still. So feel free, have a conversation in your head to change that. All right, before we recap that and talk about our homework in the chat, Melanie says, let's see. Yesterday, I closed a loop of looking for a set of model horses that I've been looking for 2 years, and it was an accident. Yes, I remember you talking about these. She says, I wanted to close the loop of inventorying a bin of model horses, and then the rest cut off. But yay, that is amazing, Melanie. Woo, 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 woo. That is a huge 2-year loop that's been bugging you. So I'm so glad. Yay. All right, so let's do, I'll tell you your homework, and then I will do a quick recap. All right, so your homework. Do your weekly maintenance session, right? That 45 minutes or so. Go through and just do that maintenance session. I'll remind you what that is in just a minute as we recap. So weekly maintenance, close 5 loops of any size before next week. That's less than 1 loop a day. So close any 5 loops of any size. And then write 1 sentence about how that feels to do your weekly maintenance session, to close your 5 loops. Write just 1 sentence of how that feels and post it in the group. Come back to this video, post it in the comments, wherever you can post it, either Facebook group, comments, email me at hello@susannak.com, whatever. But let me and let everybody else know how it feels to have done that weekly maintenance, how it feels to close those 5 loops, because that's going to really integrate the benefit when you state it, when you actually notice the benefits, that actually creates a stronger impulse to keep doing it. So we want to always notice how it feels, notice even the tiniest benefits, and share them, whether it's out loud with ourselves or with somebody else. All right, let's recap. So the maintenance plan. So we talked about what we have talked about over the past 5 sessions before this. This is part 6, so this is the last one of the series. So we're doing it, wrapping it up, and we're talking about how to stay clear without falling back into old habits, right? You can't do everything at once. It's okay to just pick one of these and start with that, then come back and watch this video again, and then do another step, add something else in, right? So the maintenance plan, feel free, start with one of these and slowly build into doing all of them. I recommend starting with the daily. So daily, 5 minutes at the end of the day, the capture. So every day, at the end of the day, you want to capture the open loops and put them to rest so you can put your brain to rest. So end each day by capturing any stray loops, any notes that you've jotted down, any thoughts that you have rolling around in your brain, any papers you have laying around that need to be dealt with in some way or another. And then drop them into your action file. The papers can go into whatever folder the papers belong in. This action file is your trusted place, remember, is your brain's safe holding space. If it's not a paper, just write it down on a note. Throw it in the to-do folder. So that way your brain can release it. It resets your mental load overnight because your brain's not just chewing on these as you sleep. So that's the first thing to start with if you start with nothing else. Start with your daily. Then, once you've got your daily up and running, start your weekly. So your weekly may be 45 minutes, adjusted slightly up or down depending on your schedule. You want to review and refresh. This is what helps build trust in your action file so your brain knows that not only is the action file storing everything that's important, but that you put eyeballs on it every once in a while. So you're not going to be surprised by anything or forget anything in there. So if once a week you review and refresh it, you can do this during a group hike. If you're a Pathfinders Plus Club member, during our group hikes, we can review and refresh. During a couple of the sprints, it's fantastic time for it. But empty or process any folder that's about 75% full or more. So file things, shred things, move them to the correct next step, read things really quickly, and then avoid your loop explosions where something becomes an immediate open loop that should not be immediate by never letting your folders get to bursting, right? You don't want them to get to overflowing. When they get full, they get done. 75% full, they get on the list to actually handle. And then celebrate visibly. So post your closed loops wherever, like post it publicly or post it for yourself. We talked about that later on. So that was step 2, weekly. After you've got your weekly up and running, then monthly, you want to do one digital reset. Because our digital stuff can be closed loops or open loops as well that your brain keeps chewing on. So just every month, pick one area, set a timer so you can keep it light. One area, your email inbox, your downloads folder, or desktop. Sometimes we drop all sorts of stuff on our desktop and then forget to clean it up afterward. Your photos, your notes app, whatever it is. And then apply that same, the triage sort of thought process. Decide it, do it, defer it, or delete it. Those are sort of the choices that you're going to make on each one. And then number 4, so you've started with your daily, you got that up and running, then you add it in your weekly. Once that's up and running, you add it in your monthly. Once that's up and running, then quarterly. Add in your quarterly, which is reviewing your big projects. So open your action file or your action box, which we talked about in talk 5, and decide what is complete, what has been paused, does it still need to be paused or has it been resolved, and what needs to be scheduled. What is that next action step that can start to happen? And you can use that triage method that we talked about in talk number 5. Then we talked about emotional maintenance tools. We talked in depth about this in talk number 5, but we want to make sure that we are always keeping our brain in a safe space, because if we push ourselves too far and we get to some of these mentally stressful, overwhelming brain states, then our brain's not going to trust us to keep it safe during these projects. So we want to make sure to always keep our emotions in check. One way is the comfort cap. So set a time limit for heavy or emotional work, 20 minutes maximum. When you're done with 20 minutes of that heavy project or that emotional project, step away, walk around, take a nice long break, or stop. Either one is fine. But by stopping early, it trains your brain that you will keep it safe. And while you're doing work, take your temperature, take your mental temperature. So pause, think, am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I starting to feel tight muscles and tense? Am I zoning out and not making good choices anymore? Am I just kind of making quick choices to relieve the pressure? If any of those are yes, then pause or switch to a different task. This way, your action file work stays emotionally stable. And remember, for the emotional and big heavy stuff especially, or for the routine stuff, if you're like me and get bored with routine, find community, find support. So if you're a Pathfinders Plus Club, we've got our group hikes. It's part of the membership. So you've already got it built in. Use those. You can either go live or watch the replays. If not, find some co-working sessions with somebody. Set up some loop safe zones. And just remember, as you're going through emotional things to declutter, you're not deleting love, you're just deleting the clutter. The love, the memories, those stay even when the stuff goes. Reset and recovery. When you fall behind, we're human, you will fall behind. So as soon as you realize that you have fallen behind and you're ready to hop back in, first off, forgive yourself before you can even think about it. Say, I fell behind and that's okay. Second, restart with a small step. Don't dive in with a 2-hour project. Open your action file and just choose one folder and work a little bit on that one folder. And number 3, close any one loop. By closing a loop, then visibly seeing that loop close rebuilds that momentum. And whenever you do fall behind, you remember you're not starting over. You're further along the path than you were before you even started, right? So you're just starting again. You're not starting over, you're starting again. Then we talked about preventing future loops. We will have loops in the future. We want to make sure that they're truly loops that we want to have in our life. So use the pause habit. Before saying yes, think, do I have a home for this? So before buying it, before bringing it home from the buy nothing group or picking it up off the side of the road, think, do I have a home for this? Where is it going to live? And visualize that, or visualize what you have, what will you let go of in order to make space. Before you start a new project or a new task that's bigger, think, what is the next step? So you stop thinking about this perfect, beautiful finish and think about what is the reality. And that gives you a head start. If you still want to do it, write down that next step, pop it in that action file. And then before bed or at the end of your work, you can think, what can wait until tomorrow? So it relaxes your brain because it's not thinking everything's urgent. You can identify what might truly be urgent and needs to be done right now, but the rest you have already stated to yourself, that's tomorrow, that's tomorrow, that's tomorrow. And it just lowers that anxiety. Feel free, write it down, throw it in your action file if you're worried about your brain chewing on it. And then we talked finally about celebrating and integrating. So celebrate your closed loops. Create a visual reminder of these wins. You can even write down the little loops, like emptying the dishwasher, right? So create a loop tracker board where you write down visually what you did so you can celebrate it, or create a to-do list instead of a to-do list, a to-do list. I believe it was Lori from Georgia who I think was the first one to say that she called it a to-do list. Or you can even create a loop celebration jar for some of those bigger projects. As you complete steps, feel free to write little notes and watch that jar fill up. And change the way you think. So in order to integrate these new thought processes, change your story, reframe it. Tell yourself, I'm a loop closer. Tell yourself the benefits of some of these new habits that you're trying to set up, like my systems protect my peace. And remind yourself of new ways of thinking if you find that there are things blocking you, such as perfection. Progress is better than perfect, right? Even the most imperfect, ugly first step that's awful is still better than standing at the starting line not having moved at all. So reframe your story. All right, hopefully you've really enjoyed that. If you're new and you don't already have an action file, then make sure to grab the action file. You can, here we go, you can get it at SusannaK.live, buy-my-action file if you want it done for you, or stop by SusannaK.com and click on the store and you can get the free guide. Let's see, in the chat, let's see. There we go. So Melanie finished, she was talking about her model horses that she found when she was looking for them for 2 years. She accidentally finally found them. She says it was labeled Heartland horses, so I opened the bin and pulled out the Heartland horses, and there in the bottom were about 6 Breyer horses, another brand. 2 of them were the ones that I'd been looking for the 2 years. Yes! And that's one of those things, like as we are closing loops, are we truly closing them? If you write Heartland horses on the box, is that true? Or is it Heartland horses and 6 Breyer horses? So as we close these loops, make sure to close them well, not perfectly. You don't need the label maker or anything, but close them well enough that your future self feels that they are infallible. You can't go wrong, right? I love that. I'm glad that you found those. Rhonda says, I finally found a place to donate my Ronson kitchen appliances. Yay! I remember you talking about that. Wonderful. I love that. Rosella says, I like the idea of celebration list or to-do list. It will help give me and the others in my household a visual reminder of what I actually did accomplish that day and an encouragement for myself. Yes, we need to acknowledge the things that we do because a lot of things don't hit our to-do list. We just do them. So I love that. Brenda Jean says, this is great. Thank you for this, Susanna. You're so welcome. Melanie says, another loop I closed was posting free items on Craigslist, and then those items actually did go away. Yay! She says, so now they're out of the house, off the patio, and loop closed. Awesome! Love that. So much more space. Nancy says, I'm writing my to-do list for all the stuff we've gone through and cleared out lately. It makes me happy. Then I wrote a pending go-through list in a friction pen so I can erase and move items to the to-do list. Yes. Yay. Yeah, because so many times we think of all the stuff that we need to go through. We forget to acknowledge the stuff that we have gone through, and you've gone through a ton lately. Love that. Melanie says, reset and recovery every other day, it seems to me. Yeah, and that's how it is sometimes. Sometimes we fall off the wagon every day. But that's okay, because if you get back on the wagon and take a step, then you're still moving forward. It's just a bumpier ride. But keep doing that, keep hopping on that wagon, and you'll find it becomes every other day, then it becomes every 4 days, and then it becomes every couple weeks. And that's how we do it. I love that. You're doing really good. Carl says, thank you, Susanna. Thank you, Susanna, for your knowledge. Having trouble with first setting the timer. Right? You're doing so good. I love it. Minimal-ish Madonna, I love it, says, the power of the spoken word, our head talk so often dictates our physical action. Yes, not only the physical action, but also just, some of our self-talk just makes us so tight and stressed. So it's just hard, right? So be kind to yourself. If you would not say it to a best friend, don't say it to yourself. Thank you for the reminder of that. Lori says, one VHS I sold, I might want to buy back, my cousin Vinny. It's so funny. So that's an option, but consider, don't buy it back until you actually want to watch it, and check to see. Maybe there's somewhere that, your local library might have it, that you can borrow it, or you might be able to rent it that once a year that you want to watch it. Maybe a friend has it and you can borrow it. So think about some other ways instead of owning the VHS, especially because those degrade over time. What are some other ways that you can access it the few times that you want to watch it? So I love that movie, though. It is hilarious. Tony says, this is helpful across the spectrum of life, not just papers. So grateful to have come across your content. Aw, thank you. I'm so grateful for you being here too, Tony. Well, all right, beautiful. I love you so much. Remember, do your homework. Your homework is do either your weekly, or if you've not started yet, do your daily maintenance session. Close 5 loops of any size, and then write 1 sentence about how it feels, and then post that either in the comments under this video or in the Facebook group, so that way we can celebrate you and it makes it so visual for you. I love you. You're doing all the right things, one small step at a time. You will absolutely get there. All right, Pathfinders, anybody in my Pathfinders Plus club, hop on over. We will have our Pathfinders Plus Thursday talk, which is where we get to chat with each other on Zoom and wrap up all the things of the week. So I will see you over there. If you're not a Pathfinders Plus club member yet, one of the benefits are those group hikes. So go to SusannaK.com, click on the store, and join the Pathfinders. It's a group of women who are so supportive and encouraging, and there are a number of different benefits. One of the favorite benefits are the group hikes, where we can work side by side with each other. I put on music, and we get so much done and stay focused and close a ton of loops. So I hope to see you over there. You're so welcome to Rosella, and I love you all. Mwah! Bye, beautiful. I'll see you soon.